Thanksgiving, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to carve a turkey in a way that it comes out nice on the plate. I'm going to use an electric knife and try to do it the easiest way and the way that saves the most meat. So first thing is to get the turkey out of the oven. We're going to let it rest for 15 minutes after it comes out of the oven. I made a little foil tent to cover the breast so it didn't dry out, but it also didn't get brown. I'm supposed to take this off an hour before it finishes, but I forgot to. Okay, so we're just going to let that rest for 15 minutes there, and then we'll start carving. Okay, so for my equipment, I'm going to have a cutting board that has a liquid catching ring around the edge, and then I have just a carving knife, and I'm going to use this for boning and getting the major pieces off. And then I have this electric knife here that I'm going to use for slicing after I pull the meat off of the bird. So this is my equipment. Alright, after the bird comes out of the oven, I like to take the big pieces off to help it cool down. The first thing you want to do is get this little retention ring off of the legs, if your turkey has one. So get the legs loose. This is very tender, so it's just coming apart. And I just like to lift up the leg and cut underneath till I get to the joint, and then you can see the ligaments and just cut through those. And then the leg comes right off. And I just lay that over on the cutting board and let it cool. And I'll get the other leg. Just get up under there. This one's very tender, so you have to be careful not to just pull the bone right out of the meat. There's the other leg off, and then I'll take the wings off. And actually, I just cut the part from the elbow down on the wings. I leave the little drumstick of the wing on the bird, and actually leave that for soup later. So I'll just cut this little part of the wing, and I leave that together because that's just a delicious little snack. Get the other side. Okay, so I've got the drumsticks and the wings off. Also, I cooked the neck with the turkey underneath the turkey there in the pan. I used the neck meat for gravy and things like that. I like to just eat it. It's very good. It's still a little bit too hot to take the breast meat off, because you're going to have to put your hand down in there and pull it away from the bone. Let's see if we can get the thighs off. So the thigh, you just want to see this knuckle bone here, you just want to push that out, get in there and slice behind it as it comes loose. This is still too hot, so I'm going to let this cool a little bit and work on the wings and the legs. Okay, so the turkey's had a little bit of time to cool down. Let's take the thighs off one at a time. And to get the thigh off of here, we just cut down between the thigh and the body, straight down, and then just cut back towards the thigh joint. This is a very tender turkey, so the meat may just fall off the bone before I get it out. It's really easier if you just turn it up this way so you can get at the thigh. Then just kind of break it back like that. And cut loose the attaching ligaments and meat. Just lay that over there so it can cool. And we can just get this meat with it. Alright, and get the other thigh the same way. Alright, to get the breast meat off, I like to cut it off all in one big chunk. So I come down beside the sternum and just cut straight down, and then kind of look in there and see how close I am. Just keep coming down, kind of pull it out as I go. Now there's a little bone that shoots back inside the cavity. There's just one bone, and it's good to look inside there and find that bone and get it loose so that you don't cut it off with the breast meat. I think it's too late on this one. And then when you get down, the rib cage is going to go around like that, so you want to go around with it. And the idea is to get as big a piece of meat as you can in one shot. And so I'm just going to go down from the top all the way down. When you get down to where the wing attaches, you can just cut around that. This is still very hot. Okay, and I have this one piece of meat with the skin that I got loose. I'm going to let that cool over here on the cutting board, which is getting crowded now. Okay, and then the other side. Again, looking for this bone. This is the bone I was talking about. There's a bone right here that just comes straight back. You just want to make sure that that stays on the turkey and doesn't get into the meat. Otherwise you may slice it up in your meat. So on this side, getting loose from that. Trying to avoid the knuckle of the wing bone there so that you don't get that in your meat either. So you have a nice fillet right here. And this yellow color is the curry rub that I put on it. It's a very delicious way to cook a turkey. Alright, now we just have a carcass here. There's a lot of meat still on here. If you have a lot of people to feed, then you need to go ahead and get the rest of the meat off, trim it off like this. And this is going to make a lot of little sloppy looking pieces, which is okay, but you can fill in spaces on the plate with that. But what I like to do is just leave it on there, and I'll cut this in half and I'll make 2 batches of soup with a half a carcass each. And it makes excellent chicken, any kind of chicken soup recipe. And as you can see, I left these wings on here. One reason I like to leave these on here is because it's very tough meat right here for some reason on a turkey. And so if I make soup with it later, I'll cook this down until it's tender and it'll be very delicious. But right now, unless you've really overcooked your turkey, these usually are a little tougher than the rest of it. So I'm just going to leave everything else on there. A lot of good thigh meat right here. That well, that's an awful lot. Let me just get a little bit of that. So there's a lot of good dark meat. I'll take some and leave some for the soup. Okay, so I'm done with the carcass, which is nice because to get all the meat off of here would take a long time, and I have to get to lunch. So I'm going to set that aside. And get down to the business of carving. The easiest thing to carve is the breast. So I'll do that first. Make a little room on my cutting board. So I keep a paper towel close by, because it's a messy business. You can wear gloves if you like to. I don't have any and I don't like to wear them. I have an electric knife, and it makes for a really easy cutting and a really nice presentation. So I just take the breast, the grain's going this way, I'm going to cut it against the grain. Okay, just to note, when you're cutting these slices, make sure you cut all the way down and separate each slice, because nobody likes to drag out 3 or 4 slices when they're just trying to get one at dinner. So make sure you cut all the way through. Another note is if you use an electric knife, because it has reciprocating blades, the skin stays right where it is. See how pretty that is? That looks just like it came off the bird, except it's sliced. And then to move it to the platter, I just take the knife blade. You can use a spatula if you want, but I just stick the knife blade underneath the whole thing, grab it like that, see it just picks up all together, and I just put it on the platter. And that's going to look nice when it gets to the table. Okay, so now for the other breast, I'll just do it real quickly. Okay, so I'm going to cut the other breast. We got a different camera angle here so you can see better. But this is the grain of the breast, and I'm just going to cut against the grain with the electric knife. The reciprocating blade helps keep from losing the skin. If you use a regular knife, the skin just goes everywhere. And you can see this one I've already cut. It almost looks like it's not cut because the skin just stays right where it is. And I'll show you. You're in the movie, son. Okay, and again, to pick up the breast meat, after you've sliced it, you want it to stay together. So just either a spatula or you can use the knife blade. And just kind of hold it all together with your hand while you pick it up. And actually, I want to turn this around, so I'm going to turn the plate around. Put it all that way. So you have a nice little heart shape. Okay, and you can fill this in with other white meat if you have pieces, you know, that you just want to throw on the plate. Maybe some people might want little chunks. But basically, this is all I do for the white meat. I just cut the breast up like that, and that's a completed platter. Now I'm going to do the dark meat. So I have these thighs here. And if it's cooked really tender, the bone may just come right out of the thigh with just your fingers. You may be able to just reach in there, get right on the bone, and just push the meat off of the bone. And I just pinch around it like that. I don't want any of the knuckles or anything in the meat, so I'm being careful just to get meat. And that's why I like to use my fingers, because a knife doesn't know when you've hit knuckles. Okay, this has been cooked very tender, so I'm able to just pinch the meat right off the bone, and there you are. And I'm going to save this bone for the soup, so I'll just put that in there with the carcass. And now I have the thigh meat. Now, it's good to check where the knuckles were. It's good to check for any little gristles or knuckles. See, there's a piece that nobody wants to get that in their mouth. So make sure at each end of the thigh meat that you've gotten all the little bristles and knuckles out. Then I like to just roll it back up into something resembling a thigh and get after that with the electric knife. Again, across the grain. Grain's running this way. And I'm cutting this a little bit thicker because it's dark meat and it falls apart easier. And to move it to the platter, it really doesn't matter at this point because this is not pretty. You can get thighs where the skin is still on it and you can make it look pretty, but this one is just so tender that it's not. But I'm going to just use a spatula to move it over to the platter. If that had been pretty, it still would be. Okay, and the same with the other thigh. I'm just going to reach through. This is the outside of the thigh. So I'm going from the inside. The bone is closer to the inside. If your turkey is not falling off the bone tender, you can use a knife to do the same thing. Just use the knife and get it under there and just cut the bone out. It's not quite as easy, but it can be done. Okay, and again, checking for any knuckles or inedible parts on the end here. It looks like we did pretty good on that one. All right, so then we turn it back over. And if this still had the skin on it, you could cut it and it would look a lot like, it would look as good as the breast came out. Okay, this one's a tiny bit prettier, but still not beautiful. Okay, and then I just have these chunks of thigh meat that I got, and I'll just kind of roughly slice those into just big chunks, because some people like chunks better than slices. And just put that on the dark meat platter there. Alright, now one of the challenges is to cut the meat from the leg and get all the meat. A lot of people suggest just cutting it off this way. I don't like to do that. I like to take the meat off the bone just like I do with the thigh. This has really pretty skin on it still, and I'd like to preserve that if I can. So I'm going to turn this over to where this gristle is, and I'm just going to pull this gristle off. You don't want this, and look, it comes off with all these little bone threads. The bigger the turkey, the more of this you'll see. So this is a 20-pound turkey, and this is about what you get. You don't want people to eat these because these are made out of bone. They're flexible, but it's bone, and you don't want that in your mouth. And then there's a big flat piece too. So this is gristle and all this bone with just a little bit of meat. I'll get all this meat off of here, and then I can just throw that away. Now I'll just get in here and peel the meat away from the bone. Again, this is very tender, so this is easy. You can do this with a knife if it's not tender. And just remove the meat from the bone. And you don't have much left, it's just a bare bone really. And I save that for my, my soup stock as well. Now you've got to get all these little thin bones out. See, nobody wants to eat those. So just feel around. They all come down to the bottom. They don't all go all the way up to the top. Let's see, here's another kind of a wide one. And how you can check for these is you can just slightly bend the meat, and if you feel resistance like I did there, see, then there's a bone in there. And just feel through here and get all those out, because very unpleasant mouthfeel. There's another one. Now I'm bending it and I'm not feeling any resistance there. So on the other side, and use your eyes too, you may see some that you don't feel. Like there's a little tiny one. And once you get them all out, then you can turn it back over to the outside. And now we're going to have a nice dark meat section, just like we did with the breast. It's just all dark meat, no gristle, no knuckles, nothing in it. And we're just going to slice it. And then, like the thigh, this is very tender, so you're going to need a spatula probably to move it to the platter. But that's fairly presentable, and you get the skin with it. And people like the skin on the meat, I believe. And then you just put the pieces there in a pile. One more leg to do, same thing. You're going to turn it over to the inside of the leg, because that's close to the bone. Grab this gristle here, and just pull that out and hold on to the meat with our other hand so that it stays. Okay, and see all the little, I like to call these shin splints. I'm sure that has nothing to do with what they really are. Okay, and basically that's how to carve a whole turkey. I didn't get all of the meat off of it, but again, like I said, I'm going to make soup, so all of it will be used. But this is what I want to present to my guest. The recipe that I used for this turkey is very simple. The night before, I take about a half a cup of kosher salt and a little bit of curry, probably about 3 tablespoons of curry. Mix that together, put some black pepper in, some cayenne pepper, whatever you feel like, and then just rub that all over the turkey and get a good crust of salt all over it and let it sit like that overnight. It's almost like brining, but it's a lot easier, and for me it works a lot better. And then you just throw it in the oven with the instructions that come with it for cooking it. And I cooked this kind of on the long end, 4.5 hours for a 20-pound turkey, and it came out very tender, very moist, very delicious. The only other thing you might have seen at the beginning of the film, I made a foil tent to cover the breast so the breast doesn't dry out, and that works great. Dry white meat just tastes awful to me, so I like to have it moist, and that foil tent always keeps it moist. So have a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you enjoy your turkey. Good luck.